Okay, so I'm going to go over a few of the questions that you're having, and I'm going to change it to the whiteboard here. All right, so question 3 is probably was one of the most difficult questions up here. And it was sine of 5 theta equals negative 0.4045. And again, this is on what was this? 3.3a videos assignment. 0.3a video. All right, so when we think of sine, right, sine is your y over r, so it's just your y values. If you think about it, right, it's going to be here, 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 will be here. Okay, depending on what your values are. Now, on this question, obviously, it's equal to a negative number. So we're technically looking at just this quadrant here and just this quadrant there. Okay. Now, this one's a little bit different because we have a negative here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to do the inverse. And when we do the inverse, we're just going to use the positive because technically when we do this, it's already negative because the y is negative, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the inverse of sine, and you're going to use the positive value to find that number. And then we're going to deal with the 5 later, okay? And make sure you're in radian mode when you do this. When you plug it in the calculator, the inverse of sine of 0.4043 is this long 0.41621333613. Weights around at the end. Now, what that means is this right here is going to be that value, okay? And so we want to find this angle. And so when you think about it, you're going to go from here to get this angle, right? So what you're going to need to do now is add a pi to this angle. So we would do pi plus that number there. So I'm going to put that in the calculator, add second pi to it, and we end up with 3.557806015. And we're going to set that equal now because we have a 5 theta here. We're going to end up, if we want to solve for theta, we're going to have to divide this by 5. And so when you do that, you'll end up with theta equals 0.711561203. Okay. That's just one of your angles. Okay. To find the other one, we have to do this angle. Now, if you notice here, the easiest way to just find this angle would end up being, instead of adding pi, we could take this whole thing, which is 2 pi, right? And subtract that angle there. And that would be from here to here, right? So we would do 2 pi minus 0.41621333613. And so you would get 2 second pi minus 0.41621333613. We get 5.866971946. And again, we have to divide that by 5. And you end up with theta is equal to 1.173394389. And I think it was round to 3 decimal places. But anyway. All right, so that was question 3. That was, again, one of the harder questions we had. All right, question 4. Let's go to question 4. You had, this one was a little bit easier. You had sine of 7 theta equals 0.4614. And you want your values from 0 to 2 pi. Okay, again, the same thing, sine, we're looking at here, 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 and here. And this time y is positive. So since y is positive, we're looking at quadrant 1 and quadrant 2, right? Because sine of theta is equal to y over r, and y is positive. here is y, right? So it's 1 and 2. So again, we would do the inverse of sine of 0.4614. And you end up getting 0.47957. Okay. And so that means this angle is 0.47957. Okay. So in order to find this angle, what we would need to do is we would have to subtract, think about half of this, right? If we want to get this angle here, we would have to do pi minus this. All right, and when you do that, let's see, second pi minus 0.47957. Again, all this needs to be in radian mode. You get 2.662022. I'm going to stop there. And then the last part here is we divide this by 7. And you end up with, let's see that, divided by 7.38028889. Now, the other thing I forgot to do is we didn't do this one. So you would have to do 7 theta equals 0.47957 and then divide by 7. That would give you your first actual answer. So 0.47957 divided by 7 is 0.06851. So these would be your two answers on this one. Okay, so this one was just the actual angle. You just divided by 7. This one we actually had to take pi because we wanted to find this value, right? So we had to take pi and subtract this angle to get that. All right, that was question 4. When we look at question 9, 9 and 10 were a little bit easier. Sine of x equals 0.29. All right, same thing. We're looking at sines. We're looking at here, 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 and here. And we're talking about positive. So we're looking at quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. And I'm going to do inverse sine of 0.29. And when you do that, you get 0.294226837. And the nice thing is we're just looking at that value, so we don't actually have to divide it by anything. So your first answer is just going to be that. And then to find another value, we can do the same thing. But again, we want to find this value. So you would do your pi minus that number. And again, round at the end. And so you end up with 2.84737, which is approximately 2.847. Okay. All right, and then question 10 was a cosine of x equals 0.1. Cosine, remember, is x over r, so you're looking at your x values. So technically, we're looking at positive x, that would be here and here, okay? We do the cosine inverse of 0.1, and you plug that in the calculator, and you get 1.4706, okay? So that's one of your values. And then to find this angle, you would actually do the whole thing minus this, right? So you would do 2 pi minus that 1.4706. Do this whole thing, subtract that. And you end up with 4.8125. Okay, so your two answers would be this one and that one. Hope this helped you. Let me know if you have any other questions. Thanks.